Hey everyone, it's Rod with Pow Group. Welcome back on The Pursuit of Wealth, your home for MJ stocks, crypto assets, and interviews. Also home to the best MJ community. Today is Tuesday, September 19th. I hope you're well. And in this video, we're going to be discussing a popular topic that has been going around the MJ community. I've been getting a lot of questions and people asking my thoughts and opinions on this, so I thought it warranted a video. We're going to go over some different scenarios of who would benefit from the rescheduling. We know that HHS has recommended Schedule 3, but it still needs DEA sign-off, which we could see over the next couple of months. We will talk about how both will benefit both U.S. producers and Canadian producers, but more so the U.S. producers, in my opinion. And we'll run through some different scenarios. But before we get to it, make sure to smash the like, help support me in the channel. It doesn't cost you anything. If you're new, you can subscribe, all that good stuff, and you'll be notified on any future live streams or when I post a new video. Also, make sure to go give Pow Group a follow on X, which is formerly Twitter. The handle for that is @GroupPow. Going to be using that as my platform of choice going forward. And again, the handle for that is @GroupPow. I'm also going to be I'm going to get in contact with Morgan Fox, who's the political director at Normal. I've already done an interview with him, and I think it's time that we do another one. This was about a year ago, and I'd like to get him on to discuss a lot of these topics, right? You know, safe banking, rescheduling, and just get an overall feel from Normal, the organization that's a nonprofit, and they lobby the U.S. government in regards to MJ reform, and they're all over the globe as well. But this is the post I made on X not too long ago. So who benefits most? MSOs, multi-state operators, or LPs, licensed producers. So MSOs are in the US and LPs are in Canada, from the rescheduling recommendation to Schedule 3. So I go through some different talking points here and some scenarios. So MSOs major tax break as 280E will no longer apply. So that's the biggest thing right now hindering US MSOs. There's some people and companies that are starting a dispensary, excuse me, and they don't even know about 280E, right? So they're just oblivious. They didn't know. I don't know how they wouldn't know that. It's almost, you don't deserve to be in business if you don't know that 280E tax code exists. But essentially, with Schedule 3 recommendation, that would remove 280E, and that would be huge. As we know, I did a video on this. Curaleaf, Boris Jordan, the executive chairman and co-founder, said that if not for 280E, Curaleaf would already be paying a dividend. Let that sink in for a moment. So if they didn't have 280E, they wouldn't have paid the government $350 million in tax code just under 280E tax code, and they would probably already be paying a dividend. So that's something that could come as well. And he even mentioned in that video that he thinks that MJ businesses are going to be very high paying dividend companies. And then MSOs potential for uplisting to U.S. major exchanges, and then access to the regular banking system. There's a vote on safe banking as well on September 27th. And this is going to help with that stigma, right? And that was another point as well. It's going to help entice big corporations to get into the space. It's no longer treated as heroin. It's on the same list as, ketamine or something like that in Schedule 3, right? And that is huge, right, for the industry. That's going to really remove that barrier of entry for a lot of these companies that have fiduciary duties and shareholders to adhere to. And it's going to make it that much easier as we start to see these incremental steps toward full-blown federal legalization and acceptance of this amazing industry and medicine of the future. So potential uplisting to the U.S. major exchanges. And you have to remember that LPs already benefit from the hype, right? Because they're on U.S. major exchanges. So when this news came out, everything was running, right? And that's because a lot of people can't buy these OTC over-the-counter names, and they only have access to it through, an ETF like MSOs, right? Which is traded on U.S. major exchange. So that's a way and then they invest in individual companies, right? In the U.S., right? So it's a way to gain exposure, but keep in mind that as of right now, the Canadian LPs are the only ones that are really on. Think of your Robinhood, examples of the world, right? Tilray, your Sundials, your Cannabis. They're going to continue to see an influx of capital because a lot of people just don't have access to those OTC names, right? Those, Curaleaf or something like that individually, they can buy MSOs. So that's an option as well if you're considering that and you're not sure. You can always buy the ETF MSOs, but again, this isn't financial advice. This is for entertainment and informational purposes only, and my own thoughts and opinions. Don't ever buy anything, sell anything, because anything I say are right? So again, LPs will continue to benefit from this hype because this is going to be great for the whole sector. This is arguably the biggest news in the industry that ever happened, especially over the last several decades. One could argue that Canadian legalization was the biggest catalyst, and that's what sparked this news and this movement in the U.S. And as we know, the U.S. is never usually first, but they're never last, right? And then once they start to embrace something, they usually leapfrog because they have the biggest economy in the world. So like I said, LPs, licensed producers here in Canada, will continue to benefit because of this hype, right? And just overall interest coming back into the space. And when people start to see, when interest starts to spike, people start to look at these names that are accessible in their trading apps, in their apps and their brokers that they already have. And a lot of those names are the ones that are listed on NASDAQ and NYSE. So until US MSOs uplist to the NYSE or the NASDAQ, I think that we're going to continue to see majority of the volume in the LPs. Because if you look at Aurora, if you look at Canopy, if you look at Tilray, they were trading over 1 billion shares this month, right? That's more than Apple and as much as Tesla. I think Tesla is a little bit more for the month. But if you take a look at CGC, not far off, right? Same with Aurora, same with Tilray. So that's something to remember as well. And then also MSOs, multi-state operators, could acquire LPs. We know that we've seen that. A couple rumors rumbling that we could potentially see that happen. Kronos was mentioned, Cureleaf. We could even see, acreage get acquired by Canopy when full-blown federal legalization occurs. We know that Tilray has convertible notes in MedMen, so that could happen as well. That could be a global powerhouse in the making with those two partnering up. And then we could even see the flip side of that, where MSOs acquire LPs, right? And then we would see LPs skyrocket because that'd be huge, right? And depending on the deal, usually the industry average is about a 20% premium. And as we look toward, momentum shifting and optimism and just overall shifting in the landscape of MJ, it's going to, in my opinion, just only add fuel to that fire, so to speak. So that's something to keep in mind as well. If we remove 280E, these MSOs, these multi-state operators are going to, like I said, Boris Jordan said they paid over $350 million to the U.S. government under 280E tax code alone, not to factor in all other taxes, right? But then you have to think, they would already be paying a dividend, more than likely, he said. So if they had all that extra cash, what might they do with it? They might acquire an LP, a licensed producer, right? Somebody that's a little bit in distress, or, like Kron could be one, or it could be Aurora, which we know Germany coming online as well. We could see legalization of medical in the US. We could see Florida on the ballot for 2024. We know the MJ Act is up for review here in Canada, so we could see some improvements with regards to labeling, packaging, taxation, marketing, advertising, all that stuff. So there's a lot of catalysts right now. Germany coming online, individual states legalizing either medical or full-blown rec. So there's tons of things to be looking out for. And like I said, if MSOs have more money at the end of the month instead of more month at the end of the money when they have no longer 280E tax burden to worry about, well, they might be able to have way more cash to do type of M&A, like mergers and acquisitions or any kind of deals and accredited deals, right? So this is going to be interesting to see how everything all plays out. But like I said, MSOS is a great way for people in the US who don't have access to these over-the-counter OTC names. You can gain exposure through that. And then, like I said, as we start to see US MSOs start to uplist, that's where we could potentially start to see the shift occur. But I wanted to mention here as well, one final thing is that I did a video on my entire MJ portfolio holdings 2023 with percentages. And if you scroll over here, you can see, and you can check out this video, I also did my top 5 MJ holdings. But you can see here that I give it with a percentage breakdown. And this has changes a little bit since, because I've been adding a little bit here and there, but for the most part, it's pretty much accurate. Tilray brands being 30% of my portfolio, by far my largest position. But a lot of people are saying, well, who's going to benefit more, MSOs or LPs? Well, I think they both will. And in the end, in conclusion, MSOs for sure will have, will benefit 80-90% of this because of the fact that this is US law, right? This is reform in the US, and this is taxation in the US that LPs don't have to, that it doesn't apply to them. But as we know, the MJ Act is up for renewal here in Canada, and we know that taxation is a big issue. So we could see some improvement on there. At the same time, we see 280E. Imagine that. A lot of people wouldn't be expecting that. So at the end of the day, this is way more bullish for the MSOs, but that's not to say you can't own LPs, right? So in my opinion, why not own both, right? I have a mix of US producers, Canadian producers, US retailers, Canadian retailers, US ETFs and Canadian ETFs, right? I've got over 15 MJ positions and it's growing. But you can see here, Tilray, Cureleaf is my second biggest holding, Organogram my third, Canara my fourth, High Tide, MSOS, the ETF, Canopy Growth. Canopy Growth's actually bigger than that now. And then SNDL, Oxley, Charlotte's Web, Cresco, MJ ETF, MedMen, Decibel, and Body and Mind. So again, and I'll continue to potentially add as we go on, but I just kind of find it funny that a lot of people they have to choose between one or the other. And I think it's just that tribalistic nature that we see in the MJ space. It happens in crypto all the time, but we just get that tribalistic nature where, it's all or nothing. You don't have to own one MJ stock. You don't have to own one Canadian producer. You don't have to own one Canadian retailer. You can own retailers and producers in Canada. You can own retailers and producers in the US, right? Picks and shovels as well, right? So, and then ETFs to kind of diversify. So in my opinion, I think the MSOs are going to benefit the most. Let me know your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. And if you think this video was helpful, going to end it there though. It's Rod with Power Group. Have a great night, and we'll see you again on the next video.